G'day, fans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Talking Stuff. And believe me, we're going to be talking about lots of stuff tonight. We have got sci-fi things bursting out of our eardrums. Mr. Aaron's sitting right there. He is chomping at the bit to just talk stuff. How you going there, Mr. Aaron?
Chest bursting out the eardrums tonight, aren't we?
Positively going absolutely troppo. It's
Yes.
what day is it? It's the Thursday night. The winter is in. It's cold. It's not necessarily wet, but we're here to warm up everybody's cockle, so to speak, with some nice, good quality sci-fi chatting, which is particularly cool. Even Christy said, "G'day, geeks and nerds." Absolutely, you come to the right place. What can I say? What do you reckon, dude?
I don't think you can say cockles. It'll get us demonetized.
You just said it. Oh, deep was creepy. No, actually, seriously, fans, we've actually got a lot to talk about tonight. It's absolutely completely Burko. We even had to remove some stuff just to make room for extra stuff. And that alone is a very, very good thing. So I love it. A bursting episode of nerdy stuff. That's exactly what we're here to talk about. Anyway, we shouldn't muck around. I guess we should get right into it because, there's so much to talk about. So I haven't played this for a couple of weeks. Let's press this, shall we? No expense spared. Absolutely fantastic. All right, so we're going to start off, believe it or not, this really, really happy show on a sad note. Mr. Aaron, over to you because you've got to talk about the passing of a dude.
So, yeah, this is one of the sad things that has come up on the news this week, and it's one of the original TARDIS team from the 60s. William Russell, who played Ian Chesterton in the first couple of years of Doctor Who, passed away at 99, which is, pretty good, even these days where people are living longer. But it's always sad, and this is particularly sad because it is from the very first TARDIS team, so from the very first episode of Doctor Who, leaving just one actress left. Now, he had quite a good career outside of Doctor Who. He did a lot of stage acting, which a lot of English actors do. He was the lead in his own show Lancelot before he did Doctor Who. He also turned up on the silver screen in The Great Escape as a supporting role. As a supporting role in that. And then he was also a long-running character in Coronation Street, which is a English soap opera, which is one of the longest-running shows ever. And he also holds the Guinness Book of Records of a returning character being in a series and then having a break and then coming back and being in that series again. So if we go to the next slide, he played Ian Chesterton in Doctor Who from 1963 to 1965. And then he returned 57 years later to reprise the role in The Power of the Doctor. And so that was a great surprise for Doctor Who fans. And it's also one of the last things he did in his career. So it's sad when we lose someone like that. But if we live to 99, I'd be happy if I make it to 99. I'm going to die of a fat attack in the next 16 seconds.
Dude, you can't say fat attack on bloody live TV. What can I say?
Sorry, we're bursting with so much news. I'm going to need my stomach pumped.
I'm trying to think of. I'm just keeping all those jokes locked inside. So that is actually some sad news. But there we go. We thought we'd bring that up. So we've kicked the show off with some Docky Who. How good is that? I reckon Greg King is probably just going completely nuts at the moment thinking, how good is this show? Docky Who from the outset, which is very, very cool. I love this one from Christy. Wow, sob. So there you go. Absolutely fantastic. You can't die before Saturday. I'm glad you brought that up, Christy, because the reason why he can't die before Saturday is because this is on. So for those people who are going to Oz Comic Con on, Saturday, you've got to make sure you come along and check out the talk that the troops will be giving regarding the old Star Trek documentary that we've been working on. The time at the bottom, I realise it says 4:15. It's actually 3:45. Just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, you got to come along and meet the team, all the people involved in this wonderful show. It's been absolutely fantastic. And no, Greg, we won't be talking about Docky Who on that particular instance. But what is funny is that Aaron told me before we went on air, the amount of people who's responded to his comments saying that he's going to be there, people want to meet him and get signatures and autographs. And no doubt they're just going to want to talk about his good old deceased estate that he's been working on for all these years. Forget Star Trek. We want to hear about the Docky Who deceased estate. Is that right, dude?
Come on, Dags. I'm not dead yet. You want to talk about my deceased estate?
I like this one. Are we signing autos after? Absolutely. We sign everything. We sign heads, we sign breasts, we sign bums, we'll sign everything, and it's all for free. How
We
good.
sign adoption papers.
Absolutely. And if there's someone there you're thinking, oh, I've missed out on this actor's autograph, we'll just forward your signature. It'll be absolutely awesome. So, so that's what's happening on Saturday. So it's our first time we get to be on a panel at an expo. It should be very, very groovy. What do you reckon, dude?
We will sign any actor's autograph for half the price that they're asking.
Yes, exactly right. Do you sign checks? Yes. So if you got some tennis players who come from the Czech Republic, we'll definitely sign them. So
was Martina a Czech?
Martina Navratilova, yeah, I'll sign her. Yep, then she's a Czech. So I don't know if she's a Czech, but what the hell? It works.
We'd sign her anyway.
We'll sign her anyway. Yeah. Absolutely awesome. Out they go. What can I say? So that's what's happening on Saturday. Be sure to check us out if you get the opportunity. Now, on a completely different note, all right? Now, this popped up a little while ago. You might remember, everybody, we showed a trailer to a movie that came out called Civil War, all right? It's a dystopian film set in America where America has gone completely burko and they're all fighting amongst themselves and blah, 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 blah. Now, I know Aaron hasn't seen it. But I did. I watched it the other day because I was really keen to have a look at it, right? And I just wanted to just very, very quickly say, for those who haven't seen it, it is worth checking out, even if the story is a little bit at the end is like, well, what happens now? The problem of the Civil War doesn't get fixed. But it's one of those things that could be what would happen if the US turned on itself. It's very violent, and I watched it through headphones, and the sound was fantastic. But it's definitely a movie that if you're saying, oh, I love the Americans and that, it's absolutely very depressing in a lot of ways. So it's well worth having a look at if you haven't done so already. I know it didn't get the greatest reviews of all time, but its production quality and style and Kirsten Dunst's character and all the rest of it is really, really good. So, but you've got to be the right frame of mind. Don't show it to the children. It is definitely not for kids. And I think it'll just slide through to the keeper because some American audiences will go, no, it's like if Australia had a civil war, people would go, no, I don't want to see Aussies killing Aussies, that sort of thing. It wouldn't be good. But in America, it one of those things that could potentially happen the way the world is at the moment. What do you reckon, dude?
Did it have the Winter Soldier and Ant-Man in it?
Did not. So, yes, we're going to move on that one. But, yes, very, very cool. It isn't strictly sci-fi, but it is dystopian, which kind of works into being sci-fi. I mean, don't forget Clockwork Orange is considered a science fiction movie, and you go, why? Because it's a dystopian future. So, there you go.
Yeah. And it has a Clockwork Orange.
What?
Well, a Clockwork Orange is a science fiction. There is no such thing as a Clockwork Orange.
Well, I don't know. You could have You could have an orange that you turn into a clock that uses clock. What are we?
Now,
I don't even know what
they'd call it steampunk orange these days.
They would indeed. Absolutely fantastic. Now, this one, I'm way behind the 8 ball, right, fans? You're going to look at this and go, oh, my God, come on, Dags, get with the program. But I only found out yesterday that this is actually going to be a movie. So for those into the Star Treks, Section 31, which we thought was going to be a TV show once upon a time, apparently is now going to be a film, and it was announced as being a film a while ago. And apparently principal photography is already finished a month or two back. And the reasoning behind it, they said Michelle Yeoh, now that she's a bit of a busy beaver after winning an Oscar, could commit to a film but not a TV show. But a Section 31 movie, I mean, that'll be the first time that a Star Trek film is not based on the main franchise, with like the main cast and whatever. It's almost like the Rogue One of Star Trek. So, what do you just quickly? I mean, without knowing anything about, what do you reckon? Section 31 movie, dude? Does that work for you?
When they say a special movie event, the special in that probably means streaming on Paramount Plus, not at your local cinema. And I do think it was originally meant to be a TV series, and then things got shook up and it is now a movie. I think it goes back to what I think is personally happening. I could be totally wrong here. Is it who's the showrunner at the moment? I can't remember, but he gave an interview about his universe, and he said, wouldn't it be great if we could do one shot TV series where you just went and saw George Takei as an old man and did just a movie about him, and you did something else with a different classic character, and that's the way you could like look at all the different favorite characters. I kind of think the framing of Section 31, who are time travelers, that might be what they're doing here, where she goes and, you know, changes the event in an important classic character's legacy character's timeline or something. So they've got that hook to get fans in to see it because it's got a classic character. I don't know. I think they have said there is an old character in this, but they haven't announced who it is yet.
Yeah, it's funny. So for those who never watched Discovery, they'll have absolutely no idea what her involvement was regarding Section 31. And people who've got good memories will go, oh, the Section 31 was mentioned in DS9 or whatever else. So it could be trying to link two dots that are like a long way apart. But good on them for doing it. As mentioned here by Colin, he'll know this. It comes out next year, which makes sense if they've just finished filming. And all power to them. And I mean, I always thought the idea of Section 31 was a great concept. So, yeah, good stuff. And now that Michelle Yeoh is, of course, an Oscar winner, it should actually have some good, like crowd pulling power. Now, with that in mind, speaking, what
Section 40, what is it? I've mucked it up. Section 41 should go to. Don't worry, I was going to say to area 31 to Hangar 13 to see Species 459.
You know what? I tell you what, you aren't going to make it to Saturday trying to get through all that. And you know, it was all live. I can't even edit that part out. Wait
a minute. I'll do a bit and you can edit my voice on this.
He's about to go completely thermo, everybody. Well, you know what? I'm going to finish off with your absolute gurgling and rambling with a bit of this. Because believe it or not, we've got a fun factoid talking about A Clockwork Orange. Fun factoid, Clockwork Orange comes from the UK expression queer as a clockwork orange. So there you go. Thank you for that. For saving the day from this rambling lunatic who's sitting right next to me at the moment. So there we go. Hangar 18. Actually, I never saw that movie, got to say. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I like this one, a secret organisation that everyone knows about. Yes, exactly right. Anyway, all power to them. I reckon. Wouldn't it be funny if Section 31, the movie, ended up just being an absolute gangbuster, and there's like people go, "This is the greatest thing. Where are the sequels? Where is the TV series?" You know, forget all the Strange New Worlds and Picards and whatever else. It could be an absolute winner. All right, so we move on from the Star Trek stuff, so which is very, very cool. The thing that came out a couple of days ago, of course, Alien Romulus now has a proper trailer, and it's very funny. You're going to talk about all the red, which is a bit of a thing at the moment, but. Alien Romulus has come out. What do you reckon of this, Mr. Aaron?
Well, it was a much better look at the new universe they're creating than the original sort of teaser. As Dag said, the one thing I noticed, because I like continuity in my movies, the Alien universe for me has always been blue-green looking. And this, they've tilted it over to the redder palettes with the orange and reds. So for me, it looks very reminiscent of the sort of Blade Runner universe rather than the Alien universe. That said, I thought it was a really good trailer. It shows a lot of, you know, alien action without spoiling too much. Everyone knows, you know, with the face huggers, what's going to happen there. What did you think?
Look, it like a lot of trailers, it looked good. It was fine. It was great. The only thing I don't know is that what can they do differently that they haven't done before? Now, it's set between Alien and Aliens. That's great to know that. But unfortunately, Aliens and all the other movies, they still exist. Yeah, they have existed. So we've seen those already. So unless they do something radically different and you go, oh, I did not see that coming, it's just going to be, as a gut feeling, it has the potential to be a bit of the old, same old, same old. Oh, my God, they're running on a ship. Oh, my God, there's an alien loose. Oh, they don't know what it is. We as the audience are going, we know exactly what it is. We've seen like 4 other movies that do exactly the same thing. So it's tricky. And I don't know what you can do differently that people will say, oh, wow, that is really unique and different, rather than just saying because it's set in this time frame, it therefore has to be really interesting. So I don't know. It's a bit of a risk, but anyway, best of luck to them. So I don't know.
Yeah, they're up against it because when you remake something like that, it has to be different enough to be worthwhile, but it has to be better than the original. So you're already sort of up against it with expectations. So it's always hard to go to a franchise. Alien, Terminator, any of those that already have a fan base, because people are either going to go, well, that's good, but I've seen it before, or you've changed it too much, so it's crap.
Yeah. So it's definitely a risk. I mean, I wish them all the best, but yeah, you don't want to get halfway through it and go, yeah, I've seen this. And it's a mishmash of Alien, Alien Resurrection, and they just sort of stuck it all together. Because even Alien Resurrection was a perfect example. They're all stuck on a ship, and the aliens run around and kill them. And go, mate, we've seen this in the previous two movies, or the first two movies. So just because it's got a different time frame, the characters for them would be like, oh my god, we've got no idea what's going on. But of course, the audience will know exactly what's happening. So there you go. We have to wait and see. Well, guess what, fans? Yeah, go on.
Is where Quark doing his garbage run gets this alien egg that turns up in one of the garbage things, and then it like hops on one of the twins, and aliens on Quark's ship.
Yes, no? I'll tell you what. Yeah, won't see that on Deep Space Nine. All right, I'm just going to press a button because I've got buttons to press. Let's go press a button.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I press that for no reason whatsoever because I wanted to. All right, so there you go. All right, so we're going to be actually moving on to our main topic of discussion. Now, before anybody says anything, yes, the movie came out last year. We know that, right? But it's just been released on Netflix. And I finally got to see it because I missed it at the cinemas. It was only shown in a handful of cinemas here, mainly because I don't know if the English dub version was available, but the Japanese language version was kind of hard to find. And I was looking for cinemas to sort of see this movie, Godzilla Minus One. And of course, it just wasn't available anywhere. But anyway, it's now on Netflix. And what I watched is the English dub version. Now, for those who don't know, when they do an English dub version of an Asian movie, what they do is they change the dialogue to fit within the speaking of the voices. So you don't have a scenario where the lips stop moving, but the voice keeps going. So they've got to try and fit in. So they change the dialogue a little bit. It does take a bit of getting used to, especially when you're doing close-ups. Godzilla Minus One, I do know from a lot of the dudes when it came out, said it was like the greatest thing they'd ever seen. I know you saw it a while ago. Dude, what did you think of the old Godzilla Minus One?
Well, I did see it in the cinema in Japanese, and it had absolutely rave reviews at the time, and I thought it was an amazingly good movie, but I do think it was given, maybe a bit of extra leeway because it was the Japanese version rather than the US sort of money thrown at it version. That said, it is one of my favorite Godzilla movies they've ever made. I thought it was a really good addition to the Godzilla canon.
So what they've done differently, and as I said, there's spoilers. So if you've not seen the movie before, it is set in 1947, straight after World War II. And they've said the reason why it's called Minus One, which is a bizarre title, Godzilla Minus One. It's one of two things. One, because the first Godzilla movie was in 1954, and because this is before that, it's minus one. So Godzilla 54 is 0, minus one. And the other one is that saying that Japan is in post-war destruction, and now it's gone back one more step because of the destruction that Godzilla causes. And its key focal point is the fact that it's dealing with a kamikaze pilot who didn't go through his mission and didn't kill himself and actually lands on an island and has this massive guilt-racked lifestyle for the rest of his days. And of course, he does go back to Japan, which has obviously been like war-torn and whatever else. He ends up with a kid, ends up with a girl, and all sort of thing. But Godzilla is still around. And from that perspective, it's really unique, really different. Because you're dealing effectively with 1940s technology to try and solve the problem of getting rid of Godzilla. And the cool thing is, now I watched, for those who don't know, there's an agreement between Toho, who make Godzilla movies in Japan, and Legendary Pictures, who make them in America. And they're going to have to do one so many years apart. So Toho does one, Legendary does one, and so on and so on. So the last one that was made in Japan was Shin Godzilla, and I watched that yesterday. Completely different story, completely different style. But the thing that makes Godzilla Minus One look good, I think, is the actual Godzilla himself is an absolute ass kicker. And the visual effects in this is absolutely stunning. And the shot that I showed a moment ago, he's swimming through the water, you'd swear Black and Blue is doing that for real.
Yeah. So one of the things that gets big ticks for this was shot on a budget that was like 1/10 of the American ones, and the special effects were just as good. In fact, some of the devastation in Tokyo I thought looked more realistic, probably because they had a budget, which meant they had to do it within the means of that budget. But you couldn't fault any of the effects or any of the creature effects. And it had probably a better personal story with more character development than the English versions, running along, the destruction of Tokyo, which I thought was really good too.
So the one thing that this film has that I don't think any Godzilla movie has ever had. Now I'm not an expert, so I could be wrong, but it does deal with just normal people. Even Shin Godzilla was all focused on the government, right? And as Ads has said, it has much more character
Yes.
development. And of course, with Kyochi, who is the kamikaze pilot who didn't kill himself, he's just a normal dude, right? And he gets back to Japan and he knows that Godzilla exists because he got to see Godzilla. And he ends up with the girl, Noriko. And of course, as you can see there, she's on a train. You can see Godzilla in the background. And they're just normal people. Now, to be fair, they end up working with people who have got a bit more connections with the government, but they themselves are effectively just normal individuals. Yeah. And it's a good story because ultimately it's a group of people, a group of dudes who sort of get together and they just form a friendship because of the job that they've got, which is to try and drive Godzilla out of hiding and whatever else. And the guy on the right there, the older guy, he ends up being in charge of how to deal with this particular situation. And of course, if you're in the scenario that they're in, they're saying, okay, we've got this gigantic monster, and the thing is huge, right? Using 1947 technology with no assistance from any other country because they can't, because of the embargo that's currently on. How do you kill it? What do you do? And I guess, I don't know if anybody's gone through the scientific research to say their solution is absolutely viable or whether it's complete hocus pocus, but it's different and it's unique. And as of course, in the end, it kind of doesn't work. But you can see the journey that they're all on. And I guess that makes it a lot more personal from that perspective. And yeah, my other half, Lynn, watched it and she was completely invested, like absolutely sold on everything that was being, everything that was, yeah.
And there was some good people being trodden on and splattered. They didn't hold back on the death scenes. One of the things, I don't know if you noticed this type of thing does my head in. You see how he's got the bandage on his head there?
Yep.
Did you see after Godzilla attacked and they had the black rain, which is like symbolism of a nuclear bomb? It rained black rain and it had black drips all over it for one scene, and then the next scene it was back to a white bandage again, and I was like, oh no, the continuity's
yeah, that's how often does that happen in the movies? I didn't pick up on that. I've only seen it once, but that's a very, very good point. It was set mostly post World War II when Japan handed over all the weapons as part of the surrender, leaving with nothing to fight them. That's right. So they had a handful of destroyers and a couple of other ships floating around. But I mean, all things being equal, a Godzilla movie is all about the creature and what they do with it, how it looks, what it does. Even when I saw Shin Godzilla, I thought I didn't like the design of the of Godzilla at all and his eyes and whatever else. But I thought in this it was really convincing, and the film has been inspired by from all sorts of things, like even Jaws, for example. And apparently Steven Spielberg absolutely loved this film, completely invested in it big time, and it is stunning to watch. It is just an awesome piece of good work. And of course, when you do have Godzilla completely losing it and destroying cities and whatever else, I mean, he's a bit of a beast, and he knows how to just wreck shit. It's absolutely fantastic.
It is a throwback to what makes B movies good, where he just wrecks a lot of stuff, and the spectacle is seeing stuff get destroyed. It is more B movie Godzilla, and I think that's a good thing. It's sort of like Independence Day. You go in just to see how much it gets destroyed. So I thought it was good from that point of view. I do think sometimes where they do the expanded Godzilla Monster Island King Kong universe, maybe the story's getting a bit too concept heavy for the actual concept of the movies. The one thing I didn't get, and you've seen it more recently, so it might have been explained. He was the kamikaze pilot, and he did have an experience with Godzilla, but he was shamed because he came back and didn't complete his mission. How come halfway through the movie suddenly they put him in charge of everything?
No, it wasn't him. It was actually he was the other guy, the guy with the grey hair. He's in charge.
Yes,
go on.
But they called him back in as the pilot and all of that. I'm like, well, that's a bit strange because he was the guy from the failed mission who was.
Yeah, what happened is they found the special aircraft, and that guy, the guy, what's his name? He ends up, Kyochi. He ends up knowing the engineer who can fix it all up, make it work. And in real life, that plane actually existed. It was just a prototype, never went anywhere, but it was actually a real plane. And he was the pilot who was prepared to do it. And I think he just had the right connections, and of course, he had experience with Godzilla previously. So, and that's how it all sort of worked out. Putting it simply, two things that's worth sort of bringing up. You mentioned about it 1950s look. I thought Shin Godzilla definitely looked like a 1950s movie, and that's why I thought some of it didn't really work for today, whereas I thought this actually looked much, much more realistic. And of course, when Godzilla walks, he takes a step and stops, And I thought, well, if you're carrying that much mass, you probably can't just walk normally because then you fall over. I thought that was interesting. At the very, very end, when the two heroes get together again, it's been noted that there's a mark on her neck. And now, of course, she survived the nuclear blast when Godzilla went nuts and blew up the city. And she survived, and he thought that she'd died, but she didn't. And that mark on the neck may have some relevance to any future movies that they do, if they do them. So I thought that was an interesting sort of thing. I noticed that, and some other people have noticed it as well. So I thought, thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, I noticed that, and that wasn't explained. Also, I thought the sound design was pretty good, and wasn't the use of the original Godzilla theme just used brilliantly in this movie. So the nods, whenever they do that, like I think music is a very nostalgic thing. So when they pull something like that in, it just drags you into the movie because you know what it means, kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought it just looked really, really spectacular. And you are right. The sound, it was stunning. There goes Tokyo. Oh, Moneybags has joined us from the other live stream that he was on. So good to see the traders joined us. And when he comes on, sure, we'll talk about Atomic Breath. He actually nukes the city. And you are right. He gets the spike thing come around the back and out of the mouth, and it goes... It's like, oh my God, that is just going to leave a mark, the amount of destruction. Because, you want to see the old thing of like, how does Godzilla, because he's so big, smash through stuff. And it's not just the buildings, but the ships and that as well. And of course, I tell you what, when he's in an aggro mood, I took a while to get this still frame right. When he's about to launch it, that is one pissed off monster. He's about to go completely troppo. And
do you know what that looks like? I've actually seen that before. That's when I tell Neil I've just bought a full-size Dalek.
No, that's her reaction, dude. So, absolutely wonderful. So, whether you see the English dub version, which, if you're not a fan of reading subtitles, like when I watched Shin Godzilla, that was subtitled, and I spent the whole time just reading. It's just like, oh my God, it was that quick. And there were times you go, I can't even see the screen. So at least when there's a fight scene, you can look up and go, okay, I can see shit. So sometimes the English dub definitely does have its advantages, but it was a very, very good story, really well thought out, and I think they put a lot of ingenuity into it, and for that reason I can see why this film Godzilla Minus One is getting all its raves absolutely right across the board. Gareth Edwards, who made the 2014 version, apparently is jealous about it because he said, why can't we make movies like that? It's the un-Hollywood treatment, and I think that's we've said that before, where non-Hollywood movies can do things that Hollywood movies kind of can't do. And it's really good to see. So absolutely fantastic. What do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I definitely give it a thumbs up for review. I mean, a lot of people knew it was good, but now it's out. And it was hard to find for a while because it disappeared from the cinemas and then it wasn't anywhere. And people wondered what the release strategy with that was. And I think it's good because movies are an event. And if you see something at the cinema, I think it undercuts it if it's in the cinema for a week and you know it's going to be streaming a week later. So I do think that's more of a traditional model that I appreciate. But it was definitely good seeing it at the cinema. And what you were saying about when he unleashes, the sound design was absolutely brilliant in the cinema. So I don't know if you're listening on your headphones. I think
no. I was watching it with Lynn, but even we could tell it was like, it was very, very cool. And Colin said it was a fantastic movie, and it was probably one of those sleeper hits because there are so many Godzilla movies out now. They go, oh, here's another one. Oh, hang on, this is different. Oh, it's set in the 40s. Oh, okay. Oh, hang on, the monster looks freaking awesome. Oh, my God, this happening. Oh, my God, we've got characters who are not government scientists and all this sort of shit. It was very, very cool.
And it was probably dollar. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to get this out. The only thing I didn't like was that the main female lead would have survived when she gets blown away. Yeah, true. And, of course, when she falls out of the train, what are the chances she falls into a lake? Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to be fair, though, she was injured in hospital for a long period of time. So, anyway, sorry, dude, keep going.
I think dollar for dollar, it was actually more successful than the latest Hollywood Godzilla movie because although that made squillions of dollars, it cost like $200 million to make, where this made $14 million and made $100 million. So if you were investing your money, this was the horse to put your money on.
Totally agree. And Moneybags has said he's looking forward to the collection when it comes out of physical media, if it ever happens. But guess what, fans? That's our chat. Godzilla Minus One. Check it out. Even if you're not a Godzilla fan, you'll absolutely love it. This is an actually interesting one. We had Colin mention something a moment ago. And, of course, Colin is in charge of the Star Trek fan club. Could that have anything to do with this?
A question.
All right. So the question I've got, this is a contentious one. All right, because I have a bit of a feeling I know how Aaron thinks on this one. Question: was Star Trek Discovery a good Star Trek series, and how does it rate alongside its peers? And I'm saying that because I know Discovery is due to finish very, very soon. Dude, is Star Trek Discovery a good Star Trek show?
Hmm.
I got you on that one.
Where do I start? No. So I think the trouble with Star Trek Discovery is it's probably Star Trek in name only, where it's got the uniforms and it's got the ships and things like that, but for me it doesn't have the adventuring spirit that Star Trek has. It has too much character drama. I don't mind character drama, but I gave up on Discovery. I think it was the beginning of series 3 or series 4 when there was 3 or 4 episodes that was just about the character drama, and the B plot was the exciting stuff that I wanted to see. The other issue I have with Star Trek Discovery is there's no consistency in the characters between seasons. So season 1, they set up all this Klingon backstory that they're obviously going to go into, and they set up stuff about the mirror universe, about blinking because the eyes don't get the light as much, and you have Burnham being more of a Klingon than more of a Vulcan because she's raised on Vulcan than a human. And then series 2, because series 1 wasn't well received, and I do appreciate the producers try and change stuff because of feedback, everything went out the window. Half the characters changed. They killed people off. Burnham was suddenly an action hero or a Red Angel or whatever you want. And then Giorgio's character totally changed from, merciless killer to helping everyone. And I said, look, I'll give it a go because they've obviously tried to retool it because the first series didn't go down well. The Klingons all disappeared. I don't know if they came back later. And then series 3, they shot into the future and it turned into a Star Wars show with alien bounty hunters and cantinas and, all of this. The burn had destroyed the Federation. So for me, if it was originally set in the future, I could probably understand it was different. But because it was set in the past, I would have thought it to be more like Star Trek, more like the original Star Trek than any other series. Things I don't like in Star Trek: swearing. Things I don't like in Star Trek: dumb characters. Look, and I'm not being mean. Tilly, how did she get through Starfleet Academy? You have Wesley Crusher that can't even get in because he doesn't pass an exam or something, and he's stuck on the Enterprise. And then you have Tilly, who, if they put her in charge of the Enterprise, you'd think she'd just fly straight through a star or something. So no, I wasn't a fan.
I'm going to give you a lot of credit. So for those who don't know, Aaron is not pre-warned as to what the question will be. He has no idea, right? The fact you've been able to recall all that just off the top of your head, I'm actually very impressed. There are things I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. No, I forgot about that. The fact that you didn't get any forewarning whatsoever, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for.
There's the reason why stuff. Sorry, one more thing I'll bring up. There was a background character that was a cyborg and looked pretty cool. That was black and white and stuff like that.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and the fans go, that's an amazing character. And they said, okay, we'll give her a better story arc. And they freaking killed her. I was like, why would the fans, I was like, okay, it's good that they brought her, but the fans said this is good and they killed her. I was like, this is not the series that is for me.
Yeah, the reason why I brought the question up is that Discovery is about to finish very, very soon. And for the most part, I thought most people had just forgotten about it, just ignored it. It's mentioned about we just watched Strange New Worlds. Discovery jumped the shark after second season. Yeah, I've come across a couple of people who thought it was really, really good. Now, I haven't watched season 4 or 5. I sort of stopped after season 3. And to sort of hear what everybody thinks. Now, I agree with you. I did not like the swearing. We had that in, I think, one of the pilot episode or whatever else. That was not ideal. And I remember when it was first premiered at Austrek, it really did alienate a lot of the older fans because it was just so radically different, considering it's set between Enterprise and the original series. And then you're right, in the third season, they jump off into the distant future, and it just seemed like a real hodgepodge of stuff. I am curious to wonder, though, whether in the pantheon of Star Trek TV shows, if it's just going to be relegated to the bottom forever, or whether it will have this core fan group who go, we absolutely love Discovery. it's the best thing ever. I mean, I love season 1. I was a huge fan of that. The whole Klingon thing really worked for me, and the violence and whatever. But it's intriguing to see where it fits now, because it got overwiped by Strange New Worlds, even Picard to a small degree, but it's still just kind of hanging in there, a bit like what Enterprise did once upon a time. Disco is finished and is not good. 25% different. I don't know how you do the measurement. 25% different to the original series. Colin has said Discovery has its critics and its fans. Discovery tried to reinvent the Star Trek wheel, so to speak. Sometimes it worked, some it didn't. That's the reason why they went to the 32nd century in the third season, because they could start afresh, right, and start new and not have to deal with continuity and all the rest of it. And yet, ironically, as that was occurring, Strange New Worlds was a spin-off from Discovery, and that just it's the one show that everybody's talking about, and Discovery, the parent show, has almost been forgotten. So I was intrigued by that. I really, really was. And it finished last week. Okay, well, there you go. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, did go for it.
It is interesting. We've got Colin here, so I'll ask a question. It's a 10-second delay, and then we'll come back to it when he answers. Being the president of Oztrek, did Discovery actually get people joining Oztrek just because they watched Discovery and became fans? I would probably think no. It would just be existing fans that watched it. It is interesting you bring up Strange New Worlds, where I think Discovery might have actually done better if Strange New Worlds was the pilot show and Discovery was the spin-off from that, because Strange New Worlds is safe for Star Trek. It's an updated version of the original series, and people might, not like recasting classic legacy characters like Spock. I don't like that, but I think he's great. Now I've given it a couple of series, even a couple of episodes, and I think it's actually better written, because I think Strange New Worlds is story-driven, where they're going to, what the characters are put in the situation when they arrive, where Discovery is character-driven, and the story seems to be the secondary thing to what's going on with the characters. And I do like that, but I just think they pushed it too far.
So I can answer the Austric question, because I was actually there at the time. The answer is no. No people came in because of Discovery, unlike, say, back in the 90s when Next Generation first aired. If anything, it may have even turned some people away. What it did do, though, is stop people talking about it. Like, no one discusses Discovery at Austric at all. Austric, for those who don't know, is the Star Trek fan club, whereas Strange New Worlds is the bee's knees of everything. So I like the idea. They took a couple of risks, and they said, okay, we'll make it like a season-long arc that goes the whole way through the show. But I can also understand why it wouldn't work, because people are used to such a particular formula that to be so radically different actually goes against the grain of what some of the fan base liked, especially a fan base that stretches back decades. And I'm intrigued to see, because I thought for a period of time there, I even asked people, is the show still being made? Because nobody talks about it. It just doesn't get mentioned anywhere. And if you ask anybody, do you watch Discovery? No. But I spoke to a mate of mine recently, and he said he actually thought it was really good. And that was completely left field. I did not expect that from this particular individual. Colin said no new fans became members because of Discovery. Some people did attend our meetings in the early series due to the fact it was a new series, before they realized what it was. But I do remember when it was screened at Austrek, the reaction was like, oh my God, this is just not happening, which is unfortunate. So I do wonder if it'll be one of those shows where, as of today, it's kind of like being pushed under the carpet, but years from now, suddenly it just finds a cult following because people go, it really works, even though I think the third season, from what I saw, was actually quite weak. Season 1 and 2 were actually very, very strong. Yeah.
I think with what you're talking about, swearing as well, in the Star Trek universe, they often use the fact that someone actually swore as a comedy moment. If like Data swore or Worf said something that was inappropriate, to have it that it's just normal conversation actually goes against that it isn't normal conversation. You drop the F-bomb or something. And you know what? If you're working for Starfleet, like the military, you wouldn't be doing that anyway, because it's a professional organization. So that jarred. And I do remember when it came out, talking to customers in the shop, and they found it hard to talk about, because some of the stuff about, the Klingon baby and killing babies and things like that was just a bit too far for the Star Trek audience. And so it turned a lot of people off straight away. They were like, Star Trek by name only. I don't like that version of Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, they redesigned the Klingons, and I actually like the Klingon redesign. I really like the fact they didn't speak English at all. It was all subtitled. Some of the violence really worked for me, but I like stuff like that to a degree, but I can see why it wouldn't be ideal for fans who prefer a bit more fun and lighthearted fluff. Trek has always been episodic, and that's right. So it was a huge risk, and they were doing the season-long arcs, which of course meant that if you joined in episode 6 or episode 3, you had no idea what the story was all about. Why do they think their swearing is necessary in any show? Funnily enough, even the Alien Romulus trailer that we showed earlier, there's now F words used in the trailers now, which I just can't get my head around. And of course, they did end up using the F word in Picard as well. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see where it's all going to head, or whether it just gets forgotten, pushed aside. Never gets brought up by anybody ever again, and where it's all going to head. But regardless of that, it's still a part of the canon. I mean, I found it funny they invented the thing of the spore drive, and I said to people as a joke, if they had the spore drive everywhere, and I mean the pilot episode of Voyager, they follow the Marquis off into the Delta Quadrant, and they go, "That's okay, wind up the spore drive, we'll fly back, roll credits, it's all over in less than 30 seconds." So,
I eat super hot tacos to activate my spore drive. The other thing was, I think it's one of those things where they took a lot of really popular Star Trek concepts and changed them, and it made it worse. Now, when they had the mirror universe in the original Star Trek, they didn't do it in Next Generation, but they came to it in Deep Space Nine, and it was fun. But when they did it in Discovery, it was like, it's a terrible thing to say, torture porn. And you had really, really violent stuff happening to characters that you like and sympathized with. Now, I can't remember the alien character. There was the one where they, talk about eating them and stuff like that. And I just think it is a bit too much for Star Trek. If it was a different series and it was all original characters, and it might have worked, but because it had an expectation of when you put on the Star Trek uniform, your Starfleet, it didn't work for me.
Yeah, see, it worked for me. I actually quite liked it. But my other half, Lynn, she abandoned it after the first episode. It was just too gruesome and gross and whatever. But I thought I actually applauded it, even though I knew it would alienate half the fan base. As I said about how you love Discovery with Enterprise was a great series. It was a great series, but in terms of its success amongst Deep Space Nine, Voyager, blah, 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 it got down the bottom. That's why I only went to, 4 years, 5 years? Never got to its full 7 years. So there you go. And just very quickly to finish off, the day when we screened the first episode of Ostrich, the whole place was abuzz. The mood was totally different at the end. This was Star Trek's Phantom Menace moment. Yeah, it was culture shock, and it was a bit extreme. But, let's see, 10, 20 years from now, you never know. It might end up having this massive fan following, which is particularly cool. So anyway, that finishes up our chat on good old Star Trek. So let us move on to, I'm going to press another button because I can.
I'll have it all figured out by the time we reach the frontier.
What's that?
The frontier.
All right, so I just, because I can, what can I say? All right, so we've moved from one star to the other star. Now, believe it or not, yesterday, the brand new Star Wars series, The Acolyte, aired on Disney+. 2 episodes dropped together, absolutely fantastic. As it was, Moneybags, or Daniel, who's joined us at the moment, he was actually on another stream talking about this particular show, reviewing the episodes. I didn't tune in because I had better things to do, talking to you, in fact, which is very, very cool. Anyway, 2 episodes down, The Acolyte, yada, the latest new live-action series for Star Wars, set 100 years prior to the Phantom Menace. Wackadoo, big build-up, big expectations. Mr. Aaron, what did you think of The Acolyte?
No, sir, I don't like it. So let's go through it. You said it was 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Now, do you remember when Star Wars came out, we're in this used universe, and when the Phantom Menace came out, it looked more technological and newer and shinier. And George Lucas came out and said, that's because the Empire have made everything go degraded and nothing's new anymore and it's all old technology. And the first thing I noticed about this, it just looked like regular Star Wars 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Surely that's the peak of technology, shiny spires, everything looks new. The Millennium Falcon hasn't had all the chrome plates ripped off of it yet we're still on planets that look like the Middle East with a land speeder going through them that looks like it hasn't. I did think it was the chance to actually show us something different in the Star Wars universe. So right away the tone was a bit off for me.
Christy said, I'm going to build up, flop. There we go. Spoilers, do I need to log it? Look, I don't know. It depends on how important this is to you. Yeah, we'll probably drop 1 or 2 small ones.
We will be dropping spoilers, I think.
Yeah. The thing about a couple of things that I picked up on, right, from the show is that I was watching it And so if you took the Jedi out, it could be any science fiction show anywhere, right? There's nothing that really relates it back to Star Wars except for the Jedi. It was just another sci-fi show. And someone had said the sets, they look like they were made in Galaxy's Edge. I go, I hadn't thought of that. And of course, I'm a pretty au fait. I'd like to think I'm a pretty au fait sort of Star Wars dude, but I can't remember anybody, characters, planets. I've had to write them down on the screen. So for those who don't know, Carrie-Anne Moss, good old Trinity from Matrix, Indara is a name. They're just blank. They're just drawing blanks. I cannot remember anybody. It was interesting, but the thing is, I've done some reading. The reviews for a lot of people have been very positive, and I was thinking, well, why? It didn't really do much for me, but my other half, Lynn, loved it, and I thought, why would that be? And I think what's happened is they've deliberately toned it for a certain audience who don't like things that are complicated, difficult. They just get fed this information and they just go with it. And for that reason, I thought, well, maybe it's pampering to the masses who just want simple stuff. Putting it basically,
this is the gluten-free version of the Star Wars universe. The other thing, like, I'm very into tone of stuff and how it makes you feel. This is the first Star Wars series where I was sitting there watching it going, this actually feels like a TV series, as in the looks like it's made for TV. A lot of the other series, and I mean, this did have a premiere yesterday at some cinemas, but there was a lot of blocking and framing that is a TV, how they film sitcoms and how they film. I mean, it's still got Disney money, but it didn't look as grand as, say, Andor or something like that. It really did look like this planet is a set. These actors are not the best caliber actors they've ever had in the Star Wars universe. So I think right from the outset, for me, it kind of cheapened the Star Wars universe just by not being the same tone and cinematic as all the other series. And I do believe all the other series, I've actually gone on some of them. I didn't like that, but boy, it looked good. Some of the Obi-Wan episodes, I was like, oh, that was a bit off. This one, for me, put me offside almost straight away.
I did hear a story that they're not using the volume for this thing. They're actually green screening it, all the backgrounds, and that has some impact on the way it looks as well. Daniel said it's Star Wars made for the general public, and that would make sense because even a non-fan would be able to just dial into the story. It's pretty basic, which is why the acting is very forced and boring. And I tend to agree. I found it was just, there was no zest, there was no pickup, there was nothing that go, oh my God, this is really, I'm just drawn in. I found that to be just sort of missing. There were some things that I found interesting. So the idea is that you got the whole May. I mean, I had to write this down because I can't remember the names. May and Osha. I love the fact they're twins. That's straight out of friggin' A New Hope, isn't it? So the two twins, the good one and the bad one, I reckon that's going to end up somewhere down the track as being a bit of a big thing. And of course, May is the Acolyte serving a Dark Lord, and I got to admit, in terms of presences of Dark Lords, I've got a picture of it here. I got to say that is pretty whimsical. I mean, it's just a dude on the hill with the lightsaber. It's like, okay, there's surely a way of showing the impact of this a little bit more grandiosely than what we've got there. But all right, fair enough. And of course, it's all, and they've got a term for it now too, believe it or not. For those who didn't know, it's called force fu. This whole thing of like fighting without using lightsabers. So it's kung fu in Star Wars, and it's happening everywhere. Force fu, go figure, dude.
Well, that was another thing I had a bit of a criticism about. It does actually look like they've got kung fu coordinators to teach the Jedi, and I prefer they get the sword coordinators like to do lightsaber battles if they're going to do that. Now, it was a plot point for whatever reason that her master is saying you have to be able to kill Jedi without using any weapons.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that probably will be explained down the track, but it does look like sometimes when they do a Star Wars ripoff and, they have a fight very Star Wars just without lightsabers. And I was thinking, when this is looking like a Star Wars ripoff, it's not a good thing.
See, when I saw you have the first fight with Indara, that's the Carrie Moss character. May fights her, and it's all like the kung fu thing, and she's dodging all the moves. That's cool. But when it happened a second time, and I think there's even a third time, you go, all right, now I've seen it a few too many times. Move along. It kind of like got a little bit repetitive. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough. These 2 episodes didn't have the big wow moment like The Mandalorian. I totally agree. Now, to their credit, I accept the fact and I applaud them. They're putting in a different timeline, different characters.
Yep.
Yay, team. Okay, all good. That's great. But even so, I found it hard to identify with the galaxy far, far away. It did look like for something that has 180 million buck budget, assuming that's correct, it kind of didn't look like it. And the casting seemed to be quite odd. Now, it's kind of funny. This dude, I thought he's the main guy, Sol. I thought, who is this guy? And he's been known as the Squid Game guy because he's a guy from the Squid Game. And I go, now I know who he is. Squid Game guy. And, of course, the Jedi all have different costumes now for some reason. They've got different dress sense. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, yeah, it was just, I mean, it's a whodunit, but we know who did it. Right, so there's really no surprise there, and I don't know why it just went through and got to the end of it and go, you know what, I'm really kind of blasé about it. So,
well, what you said, about there was no big set pieces in the first 2 episodes. You remember when we reviewed Andor and we watched the first couple of episodes and we go, oh, this ain't looking good, but Andor was good because it concentrated on Cyril Khan and of course Andor and some of the other characters. And it developed their characters early enough that later it all came back and it worked really well. I don't see the same character development in this. The Jedi Padawans, you've got Chris Cross grown up from makes you want to jump. And even my wife said, really? They're doing he's got his top off and changing scene in the first episode. Yes, Star Wars for the masses. Then you've got the girl. She's a bit more interesting with the lobster kind of pattern around her face and the crustacean points. But her delivery came across as very weak to me. She didn't have a presence that I thought was fantastic as some of the other young characters you've seen in Star Wars. Even the young Leia was more plucky than her kind of thing. So it will be interesting to see if they develop. I was thinking that the Mal Padawan might even get knocked off in this episode because he was being belligerent and arguing. So that usually means he dies or he turns to the dark side later or something like that. Did you notice the Padawans were a bit too talking back to their master?
I can't remember actually. But yeah, I don't know if people see these things differently to us. I didn't see anything reason to go, oh, I'm really hooked on you. It's like when we watched Ahsoka, we really dialed into Balin and Shin, right? We go, oh, they look great, they sound great, their dialogue and their delivery is really good, right? We're really, really hooked into these guys. When I watched this, it was just nothing, just shields up. Nothing was connecting at all. I was trying to say, who am I going to hook into? Nobody. So I don't know. I think it's to do with the writing. I think a lot of people said, oh, okay, yeah, the writing needs to be done a little bit better. But it's like it's only a short series. It really has to come out of the blocks, like absolutely rocketing up the food chain really fast. And that's kind of not happening. And I don't know. But it's very funny. Lynn, right next to me, my other half, she's saying, it's great. I love it. It's fantastic. And I go, well, are we watching this same show? Maybe I'm a bit old and jaded. I don't know. But she really dialed into it. And I think it's because, putting it in blunt terms, it's easy to follow. You don't have to think about it. And it's light and fluffy. And it is light and fluffy. Daniel said the fight scenes remind me of the Matrix. Yeah, the irony of the fact of Trinity doing a Matrix fight. Did not. In fact, one of the camera moves actually almost echoed Bullet Time, which I thought was kind of funny. And I agree. The costume design is probably intentional. So people go, oh, I want costumes of Jackie Lon and all these other characters. I want to be like them, because it did look that way. It's like they made changes for the sake of making changes. Yep.
I don't.
Don't what?
Want to be like them.
Yeah. It's a very good point. A very diverse crowd. Dare I say it, aside from, putting it in very blunt terms, aside from one person, I think it was the guy on the right here. He was the only Caucasian male that I saw in the entire show. So it's not a criticism. It's just an observation.
The other thing about him, they said he'd been doing this meditation thing and he hadn't spoken for 10 years. When you looked at him, he didn't look old enough. He had got like the hair and the beard on him, but he looked like a much younger actor. I guess he's alien, so we don't know how they age really. But there was a lot of stuff. And, there was stuff with this. They go, take us to see him. And they take him, but then the other girl goes up a different set of stairs and gets there first. Was the other Jedi taking them the long scenic route? What was the deal with that?
That was a good point. She takes a shortcut and gets to the guys like, hang on, where are the other guys? And I thought it was so funny. May, when she has to get into the temple, has to get the kid to bang on the droid so she can sneak through the doors. When she wants to come back with the poison, she just jumps in through the roof. And I go, why'd you do that in the first place? Yeah, that was
There was a lot of stuff.
kind of weird. Yeah.
May's friend, he was a friend who made the poison. The Jedi turn up and then they leave him. Why doesn't he get on the phone and go, the Jedi are here and after you? Why do they trust him? I was like, that's just dumb. But they did trust him. So he didn't do that. So I thought the character motivation was really weird in this one.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about, as we said, the casting. It's a great. The cast is what it is, but some of them are not really making it go places. And that's the thing. You're just not invested in it. Sorry, go for it, dude.
Did you watch the Towers of the Empire? You did, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you find the part where they went into that cave at the start, the ice cave? Very much like how she went into the cave, and I was expecting, it's going to be, testing Jedis and stuff like that. Nope, they just walked through and there was nothing. I was like, they've just done this better in Towers of the Empire.
Yeah, I don't know. And of course, you've got to chuck a Wookiee in at the end. It looks like he's got no hair at the top. I mean, for some reason, he's got the crew cut thing going on. So yeah, whatever. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But yeah, go.
Even that where they turned up where the Wookiee lived, it looked more like the movie Legend forest than a Star Wars forest to me. But there you go. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it.
Could drive a Superstar Destroyer through the plot holes. Yeah, Zippy the Wookiee. It is what it is, and I do agree. I think it is designed for the masses, and it's almost like a version of Mandalorian, which had to drag people in off the street because of Grogu. They don't have a Grogu in there, so I said, okay, even if you're an absolute nobody, watch this show. You can just connect in with it and dial with it, and away you go. And there are a lot of people sort of really going through the dialogue, picking out bits, going, what does this mean? What does this mean? What's the history with May and I forgot the name from 16 years ago? What did the 4 Jedi do to warrant them being killed off in the revenge thing? That's really good. I mean, the idea behind it, the story, the concept behind it might be really good. The execution is kind of like lacking a little bit. And I guess if you were to be watching all these series back to back, Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, whatever, got this thing and blah, 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 blah. I don't know where it will fit in. It may sort of like be a bit of a bump on the road in terms of just sheer quality, in terms of just dialing people in. And I'm at this stage, I mean, I agree. I got to the end of it and go, all right, I'm sort of done. I'm not hanging out for next week. Next week will come. I'll watch it. It's all great. But I'm not sitting there going, wow, this is really good quality stuff. So, but that's me. Maybe I'm not the target audience, mate. Who knows?
So there was some stuff I thought was cool. I loved how the autopilot droids actually turned into the chairs. Like, that was something I don't think I've seen in any movie in Star Wars or out of Star Wars before. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was an interesting sort of point about saying that I've got to check up her name, Osha. She fixes stuff on the outside of ships, and apparently the Republic has a ruling saying that only droids can go on the outside of ships. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that. So I thought, oh, okay. So there's a bit of a directive saying she's a mechanic or something. And I thought, okay, I don't know what the deal is with that, but maybe it's a OH&S thing. I don't know. You go.
The other thing about droids that had me shaking my head, okay, you've got R2-D2 in the original series, and then you've got BB-8, and then you've got like Dio, and then you've got like Lola, and they even Tennille, so really they're introducing another cute droid that is just going to be made as a toy. I mean, this one was like a speak and spell from the 80s almost. I was like, why? No, it doesn't even have legs. Doesn't even have legs to be able to help out.
Yeah, I agree. The pip thing was like, oh, seriously, do we need that? Anyway, can we please get back to quality over quantity? Yes, exactly right. Well, Andor Season 2 is due out at some point, so we'll certainly see some quality that comes with that. There was a fire in space. I think things can burn in space.
But there was also a fire extinguisher. There was a fire extinguisher in space.
Yeah, you should just press a button and just nothing happens. That's a good point. And just to finish it off, our little discussion, this particular character, I've got no idea who she is. Clearly, she's meant to be the stand-in Yoda, because Yoda's not around at the moment. And you said she looks a bit like Shrek, got the same kind of clothing and everything. Is that right, dude?
Absolutely. I mean, I did think, look, it is a joke. I put that together, but there was one shot, that shot there, where she actually has the same waistcoat as Shrek and the same undercolor, clothing as Shrek. And I did they do it on purpose? Because the other Jedis kind of did look different. No, they probably didn't. But again, I was just rolling my eyes, going, "Oh, they've actually put female Shrek in this one."
Yeah, I don't know. For those who are wondering, so next week, we're not going to be reviewing the episodes of Acolyte. Clearly, we're just talking about it tonight because it came out yesterday. We shall, as they say in the Star Wars universe, move along, which is exactly what we're going to do right now, actually. But before we do that, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the Sci-Fi Zone socials and YouTube and where else. Stuff coming out all the time. And don't forget, you've got Aaron's store, the greatest collectible store in the entire universe, Mr. Aaron. How exciting is this?
Well, at the moment, we're in a parallel universe because we're I don't feel like the greatest store because not enough people are turning up. So come in and say hi. And if you can't come to the store, as Dags and I talked about earlier, we're at Comic-Con this Saturday afternoon. Come along and ask us some of the tough questions about Star Trek action figures.
Very good. And Chrissy's actually said he will see you on Saturday. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. Absolutely fantastic. 1 hour of talk and stuff. Magnificent. Be sure to party hard, rock on. We will see you next week. Otherwise, with a bit of luck, we might see some of you on Saturday. So until then, stay nerdy. Take care.
Have a good night.